There comes a moment in everyone's life when the mirror doesn't lie anymore. We look into our own eyes and realize, this isn't who I want to be. This isn't the life I want to continue living. And in that moment, you have two choices: go back to sleep and pretend everything is fine, or wake up and change everything. There's a story of a man who lived in a small village. Every morning he complained, my life is miserable, my job is boring, my health is poor, my relationships are dry. Relationships are dry. A wise elder asked him, then why don't you change? The man replied, because I'm used to it. That's the tragedy of most lives. We choose the familiarity of suffering over the discomfort of transformation. The truth is, change is uncomfortable. Growth is painful. But nothing is as painful as staying stuck somewhere you don't belong. Wake up to the truth that no one is coming to rescue you. Wake up to the truth that your life will not fix itself. Wake up to the realization that time is passing and your potential is waiting. You're not a tree. You're not rooted. You can move, change, evolve. Don't wait for the perfect moment. It doesn't exist. The perfect moment is when you decide enough is enough. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Now, change doesn't mean flipping your life overnight. It means waking up every day and choosing better habits, better thoughts, better priorities. Small steps done consistently create the biggest impact. People often say, oh, but I'm too old, too broken, too far gone. Let me remind you, the same boiling water that softens the potato hardens the egg. It's never about the circumstance. It's about what you're made of. So wake up. Wake up from the slumber of fear, doubt, laziness, and comfort. Wake up from the illusions you've built about why you can't. Wake up from the life that's shrinking you and choose one that expands you. You weren't born to just exist. You were born to thrive, to rise, to shine. Wake up and change everything. Transformation begins with a moment of raw honesty. That moment when you pause, really pause, not just to scroll, not to distract yourself, not to numb the discomfort, but to actually face the reflection in your own mind. It's not about what others think of you. It's not about societal standards or comparisons. It's about that whisper in your soul that says, I was meant for more than this. That whisper is often buried under noise, expectations, pressure, routine, but it never fully dies. Every time you feel restless, unfulfilled, or disheartened, it's that inner truth trying to wake you up. Most people carry on as if life is something happening to them. They move through the motions, get up, go to work, come home, repeat. They accept the discontent as normal. But normal doesn't mean right. If you feel stuck, uninspired, or empty, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means your soul is trying to grow beyond the limitations you set. That's not failure. It's awareness is the first part. And it is uncomfortable. That is uncomfortable. Because it shatters the stories we've told ourselves for years. This is just who I am. This is how life works. And nothing ever changes. When you begin to see that these stories are not truth but habit, a door opens, a door to choice, a door to freedom. It's easy to brush off discomfort and say, I'm fine. But a fine is the enemy of great. We often stay in relationships, jobs, environments, and mindsets that don't nourish us simply because we've adjusted to them. But adjusting to something unhealthy doesn't make it good. It just means you've numbed the alarm bells. Waking up starts with facing this, not escaping it, not sugarcoating it. When you say, I don't want to live like this anymore, you give yourself permission to begin again. That single realization may not fix everything, but it breaks the trance. It calls your energy back. And that is the most powerful beginning you can ever have. We often misunderstand comfort. We think comfort is peace, happiness, or success. But comfort can also be a cleverly disguised prison. It wraps itself around you with softness, familiarity, predictability. It makes you feel safe, not because you're thriving, but because you've stopped questioning. And that's dangerous. Because life is not meant to be lived in autopilot. The same routine, the same people, the same thoughts, the same excuses, it lulls you into a state of mental and emotional sleep. And once you fall into that kind of sleep, years can pass by while nothing truly changes. People fear discomfort more than they fear failure. But what they don't realize is that staying in comfort zones is the slowest form of self-destruction. When you stop challenging yourself, you stop discovering yourself. You miss out on your potential, not because you lacked ability, but because you refused to leave what was easy. Real fulfillment doesn't grow in ease, it grows in effort. It grows in the uncomfortable, awkward, messy moments where you try something new, risk something important, or let go of something familiar. Growth is uncomfortable by design. Look around you. Every significant leap in anyone's life came after discomfort. A difficult decision, a painful ending, a challenging beginning. No one becomes stronger, wiser, or more successful while wrapped in the warm blanket of convenience. Comfort keeps you as you are. Discomfort shapes you into who you are meant to become. Think of a butterfly. It doesn't emerge from the cocoon until it's ready to struggle. That struggle gives it strength. Without the pressure, the wings don't form properly. The same is true for us. Without discomfort, we don't develop the emotional muscle to fly. But the irony is this. Even though staying in our comfort zone feels safe, it's actually the most dangerous place to stay. Why? Because while you remain there, time moves on. Opportunities pass by. Potential stays untapped. You become older but not wiser. You become busier but not better. You become comfortable but not fulfilled. It's important to ask yourself, is discomfort feeding me or freezing me? If it's keeping you stagnant, it's no longer comfort. It's a cage. And cages, no matter how decorated, are still prisons. So when discomfort comes knocking, don't run from it. Invite it in. Learn from it. Let it push you, stretch you, challenge you. Because nothing extraordinary ever comes from staying in what's easy. Comfort is familiar. But growth is where the magic lives. It's a hard truth, but one that sets people free. No one is coming to save you. We often grow up believing that one day someone or something will change our lives for us. Maybe it's a mentor, a job, a partner, some magical opportunity. We wait, we hope. We keep our lives on pause while expecting some external force to show up and rescue us from our dissatisfaction. But life doesn't work that way. And the sooner we realize that, the sooner we take our power back. Every person who has changed their life drastically, every individual who has risen from failure, pain, or mediocrity, did so because at one point they looked around, saw no rescue on the horizon, and decided to become their own savior. They realized that if they didn't move, nothing would move. If they didn't shift something within themselves, nothing around them would shift either. That's where personal responsibility becomes the turning point. But responsibility doesn't mean blame. It doesn't mean you caused every hardship or challenge. It simply means recognizing that what happens next is in your hands. It means that although you might not be at fault for what happened to you, you are responsible for how you choose to heal, grow, and respond. And that kind of responsibility is empowering, not burdening. It means you don't have to wait anymore. You don't have to depend on anyone else to give you permission to change your story. Still, many people hesitate because taking responsibility strips away the comfort of excuses. It forces you to stop pointing fingers and start asking yourself difficult questions. What am I doing to improve my situation? What patterns am I repeating? What truths am I avoiding? That kind of self-inquiry isn't easy. It requires maturity, humility, and courage. But without it, change remains a fantasy. When we stop looking outward and start looking inward, we discover a truth. Everything we need is already within us. Strength, clarity, resilience, creativity. But those qualities don't activate until we stop outsourcing our power. Until we stop saying, I'll change when they help me, or I'll grow when life gets easier. Life doesn't owe us comfort. It gives us opportunity, and it's up to us to seize it or sleep through it. Taking charge of your own life means building discipline when no one's watching, developing vision when no one's encouraging you, and making decisions that may not make sense to others but are right for your path. It means learning to be your own motivator, your own guide, your own support system. And the beautiful part, the moment you stop waiting to be saved is the moment you start becoming unstoppable. Change is often mistaken as a single dramatic act, a grand decision, a life-altering moment, an overnight breakthrough. But real lasting change is not a sudden event. It's a gradual evolution. It begins in silence, continues through repetition, and reveals itself only with time. The truth is, the most powerful changes in life don't announce themselves loudly. They whisper through daily decisions, subtle shifts in mindset, and quiet commitments to do better today than yesterday. It's easy to be overwhelmed by the idea of transformation because we often think it means turning our entire lives upside down in one massive leap. But that's not how sustainable change works. It's not about doing everything at once. It's about doing one thing again and again with intention. That one thing could be as simple as choosing to speak kindly to yourself instead of criticizing your every mistake. It could be deciding to get up 10 minutes earlier to stretch, read, reflect, or breathe. It could be committing to one honest conversation, one small act of courage, or one healthier choice each day. These things may seem minor in the moment, but like drops of water filling a jar, their collective impact is immense over time. Think of the process like climbing a mountain. From the bottom, the peak looks distant, almost unreachable. But you don't leap to the top. You take one step, then another. You keep going even when your legs burn and the path gets steep. Each step may seem insignificant on its own, but each one brings you closer to the summit. The same applies to personal change. Every small, consistent act of progress accumulates. You may not notice the difference in a day, a week, or even a month. But over time, the shift becomes undeniable. Consistency is the secret. Anyone can make a resolution. Anyone can have a burst of motivation. But not everyone is willing to show up day after day when it's boring, when no one is cheering, when the excitement fades. That's when true transformation is happening. When it's quiet, when it's hard, when it's invisible to others but real to you. The most meaningful growth is often unseen, like roots growing deep into the ground before the tree begins to rise. We often underestimate the power of momentum. When you keep showing up, even in small ways, you begin to build trust with yourself. You begin to see that change isn't beyond you, it's within you. That kind of self-trust becomes your foundation. It tells you, if I can do this today, I can do more tomorrow. And that belief, nurtured through daily action, becomes unshakable. So rather than chasing instant change, focus on meaningful steps. Instead of waiting for life to shift in a dramatic way, become the architect of gradual, quiet progress. It's not about perfection, it's about direction. It's about direction. And every day you choose to move forward, no matter how small the step, you are already changing everything. We spend so much of our lives waiting for the right time, the right mood, the right energy, waiting for more money, more motivation, more clarity. We convince ourselves that we'll start after the weekend, after the next holiday, after the new year. We keep putting off the very changes we know we need, believing some perfect moment will arrive, one where the stars align, all obstacles disappear, and we feel completely ready. But that moment never comes, because the perfect time doesn't exist. Life is not waiting for us to feel ready, it's moving on every single day. The idea of the alright time is often an illusion we use to justify inaction. Deep down, we're not really waiting for better timing, we're avoiding discomfort. We fear the unknown, fear failure, fear judgment. So we create the myth of perfect timing to delay doing the hard work of change. But if you really look at those who've made meaningful shifts in their lives, whether in health, career, relationships, or mindset, you'll notice they didn't wait until everything made sense. They moved while things were unclear, they began while they were afraid, they started even though they weren't fully ready. And that's the secret. Action precedes clarity, not the other way around. You don't need all the answers to begin. You need courage to take the first step. That first step might feel small, it might not seem significant, but it breaks the inertia. It sends a signal to yourself and to the world that you're no longer just thinking about change, you're embodying it. Waiting creates stagnation. The longer we wait, the heavier our dreams feel. Procrastination becomes a habit, and with each day of delay, we unknowingly reinforce the belief that change is something distant, unreachable. And soon, that belief becomes our reality. But when you take action, even the tiniest one, you shift your internal momentum. You start to believe, maybe this is possible. Maybe I can. That shift in belief is more powerful than any motivational speech or perfect condition. The world doesn't owe us the right moment. It offers us a blank page every morning. The question is, will we write on it or let it remain empty? The opportunities for growth, love, success, they don't appear out of nowhere. They show up when we start moving, when we make space for them by acting, by deciding, by daring. You don't need to overhaul your entire life today, but you do need to stop waiting. Start where you are, with what you have, however imperfect it feels. Because the true magic happens not when everything is ideal, but when you rise despite the imperfections. That's when growth takes root. That's when change begins, not later. Now, life is filled with situations that we cannot control, unexpected hardships, losses, betrayals, disappointments, and setbacks. These moments can make us feel powerless, as though we are at the mercy of the world around us. And it's easy to fall into the belief that our circumstances define us. That the environment we were born into, the pain we've endured, the limitations we faced, that these are the things that will ultimately determine who we become. But that belief isn't truth. It's fear dressed up as logic. Because the reality is, our circumstances are only part of the story. The real author of the next chapter is us. Two people can go through the exact same storm and come out with completely different outcomes. One can become bitter, broken, defeated. The other can become wiser, stronger, and more grounded. The difference isn't what happened to them. It's how they chose to interpret it, grow through it, and rise after it. Your response to adversity shapes you far more than the adversity itself. In other words, what's outside of you may shake you, or what's inside of you may shake you, but what's inside of you is what sustains you. Take the example of a seed planted in two different soils. One is rich and nurturing, the other is dry and barren. You think the seed in the dry soil wouldn't grow, but sometimes that's the seed that pushes deeper, fights harder, and ultimately grows stronger roots. Similarly, life doesn't always give us ideal conditions, but it gives us the opportunity to discover what we're made of. When challenges appear, they're not just obstacles, they're invitations. Invitations to rise, to adapt, to transform. It's also important to understand that circumstances are temporary, but character is lasting. The job you lost, the relationship that ended, the environment that's limiting you, these things can and will change. But the strength you build while navigating them, the patience you develop, the lessons you learn, those become part of who you are. That's the real gain. That's the growth no one can take away from you. When you accept that you can't always choose your circumstances, but you can always choose your response, something inside you shifts. You begin to reclaim your power. You stop waiting for life to become easier, and you start becoming stronger. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I learn from this? How can I grow through this? That mindset is the foundation of resilience. Even in your most difficult moments, you have a choice. You can let the situation define you, limit you, reduce you, or you can let it refine you. You can decide that no matter how hard life gets, you won't allow it to dim your spirit or crush your purpose. Because ultimately, it's not about what's happening around you. It's about what's happening within you. And when you protect your inner world, when you nurture strength, clarity, and courage from within, you realize that no external condition has the power to defeat you, not unless you surrender to it. Fear is one of the most powerful forces in the human experience. It can paralyze potential, silence dreams, and hold us hostage in lives that feel far too small for who we truly are. But here's what most people never realize. Fear is almost never based on reality. It's based on imagination. It's the mind's ability to create vivid, convincing stories of what could go wrong. And the more we believe those stories, the more we shrink ourselves to fit within them. Think about it. How many times have you hesitated to speak up, take a risk, try something new, or make a bold decision simply because of what might happen? The fear of failing, the fear of being judged, the fear of being misunderstood, rejected, embarrassed. These fears rarely come from actual experiences. They come from anticipated pain. Our mind projects scenarios that haven't even occurred, and yet we start living as though they already have. That's how fear lies. It pretends to protect us, but all it really does is prevent us. What makes fear so tricky is that it's often dressed up as logic. It says, be practical, or play it safe, or wait a little longer. And while caution can be wise, fear in disguise can be dangerous. It whispers, don't speak when your truth needs to be heard. It says, don't try when your heart is longing to grow. And slowly, it convinces you that settling is safer than striving, but fear only has the power you give it. It thrives in your silence, in your hesitation, in your refusal to act. The moment you take a step despite being afraid, you begin to see it for what it really is, a shadow, not a wall. Something that seems large in the dark but shrinks when exposed to light. And the light is your action, your decision to move forward even with a trembling heart. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else, growth, freedom, truth, is more important than fear. Every brave person you admire didn't act because they felt no fear. They acted because they refused to be ruled by it. The only way to overcome fear is to walk through it. Action dissolves fear. Clarity comes from movement. Confidence grows from every small victory against the voice that says, "You can't." And here's the irony. The fears we obey most often never come true. The things we spend weeks or years dreading rarely happen the way we imagine. But the regret of never trying, that always feels real. That stays. Fear may be loud, but regret is louder. And the pain of wondering or what if echoes far longer than the pain of trying and not succeeding. When you begin to question your fears instead of obeying them, you start to break their grip. Ask yourself, is this fear real or imagined? Is it protecting me or preventing me? What's the worst that could happen and could I handle it? More often than not, you'll find that you're far more capable than you've given yourself credit for. The point is not to be fearless. The point is to be fearless enough to live fully, to be afraid and still move, to recognize fear but not let it decide your future. Because once you stop allowing fear to sit in the driver's seat of your life, you begin to navigate from a place of purpose, not panic. And that's when everything begins to shift. One of the most destructive myths people carry is the belief that they are too far gone to change, that they've made too many mistakes, wasted too much time, or lived too long in the wrong direction to ever turn things around. This belief wraps itself around the heart like a chain, convincing people that change is for others, not for them. But this belief is not truth. It's a story created by pain, repeated by the mind, and reinforced by past experiences. And like all stories, it can be rewritten. There is no expiration date on growth. There is no timeline that says you have to get your life together by a certain age or achieve something by a specific point. We live in a world that celebrates early success and fast results, but real transformation doesn't follow a clock. It follows a decision. A decision to begin, regardless of how long it's been, regardless of how broken, lost, or late you feel. To see some of the most powerful people in the world, the most compassionate, the most wise, the most grounded, didn't find their strength through ease. They found it through falling apart and rebuilding. They found it in the lowest chapters of their lives, when everything they thought they knew was shattered. And from those ashes, they rose, not because they were perfect, but because they refused to stay defeated. Being broken doesn't mean you're finished. In fact, it often means you're being reshaped. Think of the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. The cracks don't make the object less valuable. They make it more beautiful, more meaningful. The flaws become part of the story. You are no different. Your pain, your setbacks, your scars, they do not disqualify you from growing. They qualify you. They deepen your empathy. They strengthen your insight. They make your journey unique. And the idea that it's too late, that's one of fear's favorite lies. Some people discover their true calling at 20. Others find it at 60. What matters is not when you start, but that you start. Every single day, people around the world rise from painful pasts and choose something new. New habits, new standards, new beliefs. Not because they have a perfect plan, but because they no longer live in chains built by regret. Don't let the past decide your future. You are not your mistakes. You are not your failures. You are not your failures. You are not the time you think you've wasted. You are the person who's still here, still breathing, still capable of choosing differently, still able to write a new chapter no matter how many pages have already been written. Even broken pieces can create a masterpiece in the hands of someone willing to build. And you are both the builder and the artist of your own life. You don't need a clean slate to begin. You just need a determined heart, a willingness to let go of old labels, and the courage to say, I am not done yet. Because you're not, and you never were. One of the most liberating realizations a person can have is understanding that who they've been is not who they have to continue being. We often mistake our past identity for our permanent one. We say things like, this is just how I am, or I've always been like this. And without even realizing it, we lock ourselves inside a version of ourselves that no longer serves us. But the truth is, identity is not fixed. It's fluid. It's not a label to wear forever. It's a reflection of what you choose repeatedly over time. And just like any choice, it can be changed. Too often, people define themselves by their mistakes, their weaknesses, or the stories others have told about them. Maybe you've been called lazy, emotional, unreliable, unworthy, Or maybe you've labeled yourself with even harsher words. After enough repetition, these stories start to feel like facts, but they're not. But they're not. They're interpretations formed by fear, shaped by environment, often created during moments when you were just trying to survive. The problem is not who you are. The problem is believing you have to stay that way forever. You are not obligated to be the same person you were last year, last month, or even yesterday. Every moment offers you a fresh canvas. You can decide to unlearn habits that no longer align with the life you want. You can choose new beliefs that empower you rather than shrink you. You can step out of the version of yourself that was built on fear, pain, or limitation and step into one rooted in strength, hope, and truth. But here's what often holds people back. They fear the judgment that comes with changing. What will people say if I suddenly start acting differently? Or will they think I'm fake? Or will I lose friends or face criticism? The answer might be yes. But here's a deeper question. What's the cost of staying the same just to keep others comfortable? Growth always challenges the people around you, especially those who benefited from the old version of you. But your life isn't meant to be a museum piece, frozen in one identity for others to admire. It's meant to evolve, to stretch, to reflect who you're becoming, not just who you've been. Even science confirms that the brain is capable of change through neuroplasticity. That means your patterns, your thoughts, your behaviors, they're not set in stone. They're adaptable. Your mind is wired to grow. And your identity isn't something you uncover, it's something you create. Through consistent action, conscious choices, and a willingness to redefine what's possible, you shape a new version of yourself day by day. So when you catch yourself saying, I can't, I'm not the type of person who, or that's just how I am, pause, question that thought. Ask yourself, is this who I really am, or just who I've been taught to be? Give yourself permission to change, to release the weight of outdated labels, to shed identities that feel more like cages than homes. You owe no one an explanation for choosing growth, only yourself the honesty to admit that you deserve more than a life of self-limitation. You are not a statue. You are a living, breathing, becoming soul. And becoming means changing, not because the old you was a failure, but because the new you is more aligned, more awakened, and more alive. There's a difference between simply being alive and truly living. Many people move through life like they're stuck in a loop, waking up, rushing through the day, completing tasks, dealing with responsibilities, and collapsing into bed at night only to repeat it all the next day. This routine becomes so normal that we forget to ask ourselves whether we are actually living or merely existing. But deep down, every soul yearns for more than survival. It longs for joy, purpose, connection, and meaning. You were never meant to just get by. You were meant to experience life deeply, intentionally, and fully. Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that happiness is something we pursue after we achieve, after we succeed, after we fix everything, after we earn enough, after we become someone worthy of joy. But life doesn't wait. Time doesn't pause for you to finish your to-do list or reach your goals before allowing you to feel joy. It keeps moving. The days go by, and if we're not careful, we end up postponing our happiness to a future that keeps getting pushed further out of reach. Living fully is not about extravagant lifestyles or dramatic changes. It's about being present. It's about noticing the small wonders that most people miss. The morning sunlight through your window, the laughter of someone you love, the quiet strength of your breath, the peace in a silent moment. It's about appreciating what's already in your life instead of constantly chasing what isn't. Gratitude, when practiced daily, turns ordinary moments into sacred ones. It wakes us up from the numbness of routine and invites us to savor life instead of just enduring it. But living fully also means facing what's difficult. It's not about pretending everything is fine or avoiding pain. It's about embracing the full spectrum of human experience. The highs and the lows, the joy and the sorrow. Real life is not perfect, but it's real. And when you allow yourself to feel fully, even the uncomfortable emotions, you begin to realize that being alive is a gift, even when it's messy. Purpose is another essential part of living fully. When you live with intention, when you connect your actions to something meaningful, life starts to feel less like a burden and more like a blessing. You may not have your grand purpose all figured out, but you can begin by asking simple questions. What makes me feel alive? What kind of impact do I want to leave? What values do I want to stand for? When you begin to align your life with those answers, even in small ways, you start to live with direction rather than drift. And then there's love. One of the greatest markers of a life well lived is how deeply you've loved. Not just romantic love, but love for yourself, love for your journey, love for people around you. Don't let life harden you into numbness. Don't let disappointments convince you to close your heart. To live fully is to love courageously, to forgive freely, and to open your heart even after it's been bruised. The clock is ticking, not in a fearful way, but in a way that reminds us of the value of now. This moment is not coming back. This day will never repeat itself. You don't have to wait until everything is perfect. You don't have to wait until you're a certain age or achieve a certain milestone to begin living more consciously, more joyfully, more meaningfully. You can start today by choosing to wake up with awareness, move through your day with gratitude, treat others with kindness, and do something that makes your soul feel alive. Because the truth is, you don't get your life back in some grand replay at the end. You get it once. And the most powerful thing you can do with it is not just exist, but to live. Live with heart, live with purpose, live like it matters, because it does.